Hi on and all. So in the previous class, we started discussion on managing and maintaining the code, right? As the title says, this chapter focuses on how to manage and how to maintain the code written by us. I mean RPA developer, right? So specifically, at the end of this chapter, you will know how to organize the project created by you and how to nest the workflows and how to reuse the workflows and how we can able to efficiently use commenting techniques and how we can able to use state machine, and finally we shall conclude this chapter with when actually we can able to use flowchart and when we can able to use state machine or sequence, right? So we already have started discussion on project organization. So today's class objective is we shall go in depth about project organization, and then we shall try to cover nesting workflows means what. Okay, right? So today's class objective is to cover these two. One is how to organize the project and how to nest the workflows. Clear? So with that we shall start discussion on project organization. As the title says, this is concerned with organizing the project created by the RPA developer. So according to the author, so while working on any automation project, okay, it is important, it seems, to work with the proper set of rules so that the project can be organized in efficient way. See, the bottom line is whenever you are creating an project in UiPath Studio, it is better to follow certain rules, it seems. We shall see what are those rules. If we follow those rules, then we can say that our project has been organized in an efficient way. So why do we need to organize this in an efficient way? It is very simple. If you organize this in an efficient way, then it can be managed very easily. So I will give a simple example to better understand what is this managing means what and organizing means what. So we shall consider a scenario. There is a table here. There is a study table here. Okay, there is a table here, and we have textbooks. Okay, many textbooks, and let us assume we have pencils. Okay, like pencils, and we have staplers. Okay, and we have a punching machine. Okay, and we have let us let us stop at this point. Okay, we have books and we have pens and we have staplers. Okay, and we have punching machines. Okay, punching machines. Now I will tell you, so you keep all these items on the table. So if you don't follow the rule to place these items on this table, let us assume that you have not followed any rule, just randomly you have placed books here, pen here, then again stapler here, and punching machine here. Okay, then again book. I mean randomly you have collected all this and you have placed at one place. Let us say this place. Let us assume like this, you have organized the given things on this table like this. Then see here, so since you have not followed any rules in order to organize or in order to keep these items properly on the table, it will create a problem in future. What is that problem? Suppose if I ask to pick a particular textbook, okay, from this table, then you have to take, you obviously will take more time in order to pick that required textbook, because all these things has been jumbled, right? Correct, no? So hence similarly in case of software or creating a project, okay, you need to see project will consists of many files. So a single project will consist of many files, and you have to organize these files inside the project properly. So then only it can be easily fetched, otherwise it will create a problem when searching, right? So this is one scenario. Now let us assume that in order to do the same activity, we will follow certain rules. Now we shall see how it is that for example, consider the same table, okay, and consider the same scenario where this is the given items, and you have to keep all these given items on this table. Now you will follow certain rules. In order to keep the given things on this table. Let us assume that the rule is very simple. You keep the similar type of items or things on one side. Let us assume that books will be kept here. Only books will be kept here, and pens will be kept here, and stapler will be kept here, and the punching machine will be kept here. So now you have followed a rule here in order to organize the given items on this table, and since you had followed the rule, it is very easy now. It is very easy now for pick the item. For example, let us assume that I need a stapler, then directly I can fetch a stapler from here, and if I need a book, directly I can fetch it from here. So this is what I was telling that, and the same scenario will be applicable even in the software. So when you create a project, multiple files will be get created, and those files in the project or multiple workflows, let us assume that multiple workflows will also be created, and you need to organize these workflows or sequence or files in this project in a proper way. So how to do this? To do this, they have given a set of rules for us, and we need to follow those rules so that the workflows or sequence inside a project will be properly organized. So once it is properly organized, then that project can be maintained very easily. That's what the author is telling here. Clear? So this is what a project organization is, and I have explained that organization at a high level. Now we shall go in depth. So in UiPath specifically, we need to follow some best practices, it seems. Okay, when working with a project. So these are the best practices. So we already have learned this in the previous class. Okay, now without wasting the time, we shall move forward. So the first best practice is we need to pick an appropriate layout, it seems, for each workflow. Or make it simple, we need to choose a proper layout for each requirement. That's what the author is telling here. So there are various layouts available with the UiPath Studio, it seems. So this screenshot is a screenshot taken in UiPath Studio of 2018 in recent version, I mean 2020th version. So the layout has been changed, but the concept has not been changed. Clear? So there are several layouts available with this UiPath Studio, it seems, like a blank, simple process, agent process improvement, transaction business process, like this. So depending on the requirement, that's what the author is telling here. So among these layouts, you need to choose the best option based on the project that you are working on. That's what the author is telling here. Clear? Now we shall see one by one what is blank means, what is simple process means, and what is agent process improvement means, and what is transaction business process means. Clear? So now we shall go ahead with the blank one. So as the name itself says, a blank project is simply a blank page, it seems. So on which you can create the type of layout you want depending on the requirement. Okay, I will give a snapshot. So this is how the blank layout will look. So it is simple, it is empty. Now depending on the requirement, you can drop a sequence here or flowchart here. That's what the author is telling here. Clear? So that is, you can simply start with the sequence activity. If your workflow is a single order sequence, or we already have learned this, if the given work is very simple, then you will start with a sequence activity. If the given work is a little bit complex problem, then you will go with a flowchart activity. Clear? So that's what the author is telling again here. So it finally, the bottom line is, it depends on the needs of the user or the type of the automation that you have taken. Clear? So this is very important, and it is you are the same what you have learned in software engineering too, right? Okay, this is about blank project. Now we shall go ahead with a simple process. A simple process means the given project does not involve what I can say multiple tasks, only simple task, right? For example, adding two numbers, adding two given numbers, or subtracting two given numbers, or just displaying the even numbers in the given range, like this. Clear? So the simple process layout is used to model a process as a flowchart diagram in which there is a space for user input. Okay, this is what the author is telling. So whenever you need to take user input, then you can choose a layout called simple process, it seems, at an high level. Clear? Okay, we shall go in depth later. So inside this, we can use a sequence, okay, that process the required input, okay, in a further transaction process. So if there is no new input for the transaction, it will end the process. Inside the transaction process, okay, we have to make a workflow that is used to automate it. Don't worry about this, I will tell you this. But whenever you come across this situation like this, so you need to take input from the user, and first you need to process that input, and if the input is valid, then you have to carry out the transaction or business process, then you have to end. Otherwise, if the given input is invalid, just say the user saying that it is invalid, so you can't carry out the given transaction, so and hence you need to end the task. That's what the author is telling here. So whenever you come across a situation or a scenario like this, then you can go ahead with a layout called simple process. So this is by default generated process that can be deleted or changed. So by automatically it will be this I will tell you, I will show you. I think this is the right time to show you. So like this. So see here, this is a flowchart. Usually flowchart will with a start node, and interesting, this is a sequence. Remember, this is a sequence. The whole responsibility of this sequence is to deal with the data input. And see here, check whether the input is valid. If it is valid, then assign or take one more flowchart here whose responsibility is to process the given transaction. Clear? Okay, if it is false, then end the process. This is another sequence. Okay, this is what the author is telling. So this is what you will get by default. That's what the author is telling by default when you choose this layout, when you choose simple process layout, so which can be deleted or it can be modified. I mean, if you don't want end process sequence, then you can delete this directly. You can put a message box over here saying that instead of a sequence here, you can put saying that the given input is invalid, and you can stop it. So that's what the author is telling here. See, look at here, interesting. See here, so input handling is taken by a sequence itself. Okay, and transaction processing job has been assigned to a separate workflow. Okay, why this is what organization means. This is what organization means. Suppose see here, see if you find a fault in the input, or if you feel that the input is not taking properly from the user, then 100% you can filter out saying that this part of the code is nothing to do with that. If you have a trouble in getting the input, then obviously you need to look at this particular sequence. So that's what organization is important. If you organize this properly, then the testing will be easier. That's what maintaining or managing means. Clear? Okay, so that's what here the author has been explained here, and I explained with this layout. Now we shall go ahead with another interesting layout called agent process improvement. So this triggers the automation in response to a mouse or a keyboard user event. See, whenever you have to handle a user event or a mouse event or keyboard event or both, then you have to choose a layout called agent process improvement, it seems. So it is basically used when the user is automating a process that involve typing or clicking actions. So that's what I said. Whenever you want to create a robot which will trigger when the user clicks on something, or when the user enters control W or control enter or shift enter, something like that, then you, in that case you can go ahead with an agent process improvement layout, it seems. So I will give a simple example. See here, we already have learned about click trigger and key press trigger, hotkey trigger. Then this is event handler. Okay, and have you come across this monitor agent? So monitor agent will have two sections. I have already explained you. One is the event section, and the other one is handler section. Clear? So this is used to handle click event, this is used to handle keyboard event, this is used to handle either click or keyboard event. Clear? So this is the layout that you will get in case of agent process improvement. Clear? Okay. So last layout called a transactional business process layout. When you have to use this, so we will use this layout if you want to model a business process as a state machine diagram, or make it simple. If you are trying to automate a business process or industry process, then you can go ahead with which involves transactions. Then in those cases you can go ahead with a layout called transactional business process. So it is basically a demo of how transactional business process automation works. That's what I said. If you want to build a better robot to automate such process, it is better to use this layout, it seems. Which layout? Transactional business process. So usually this layout will consist of states like init states, get transaction data, process transaction state, and end process. So this is the what I can say states that you will get when you choose a layout called transaction business process. So since you have an idea of Java, I hope you have learned about applet, something like that. Whenever you create an applet, a life cycle of the applet will be get created. Okay. Or make it simple, even if you have not learned about applet, you are familiar with Java objects, right? So whenever you create a Java object, there will be a cycle called first it will call a constructor. So first memory will be get allocated, then a constructor will be get called, and what is the job of the constructor? To initialize. Then once the constructor will be get called, then it will once it has been initialized, then it is ready to for further processing. Similarly here, so when you choose the transaction business process layout, this is the set of states that you will get. So now we shall see one by one, and it is straightforward. So in init state, what we have to do, we need to configure our settings, and we need to initialize all the variables that you are going to be used in this transaction. This is similar to constructor in Java, right? And all configuration files of the application being used in this transaction are read and taken into account by the robot. See, as I said, it is very similar to constructor job. So before using any object, you need to make sure that that object has been properly initialized. That's what even here it is telling that. So there is a state called init state, whose job is to initialize the robot with a proper state. So the init state also invokes all the applications that are used in the transaction. So it depends on the requirement, but make sure that the bottom line is the job of init state to initialize the robot with a proper state, similar to constructor in Java. And the next state is get transaction data. Once again, it's straightforward. This state this state is responsible, okay, for what? For getting the transaction data. Okay, and remember, so this transaction state will work after init state, or this is what the author is telling here. See, all the transaction data is fetched from the init state. So first init state will be executed, and then get transaction data state will be executed. Or in other words, the first robot will enter to the init state, and then it will enter to the transaction state or transaction data state specifically. And the job is to get the data, okay, from the init state. If there is no data, then it transfers the control to the end process. Obviously, that is true, right? If there is no data to process, then obviously you need to end the process. Then obviously to end the process, it will go to the end process state. Clear? Okay. And then in the process transaction state, all the transaction data will be processed. It's very straightforward. The state name is process transaction. Processing transaction means processing the transaction data. So in this state, it will take the whole responsibility is to process the transaction data. And the end process, as the name itself says, this state ensures that all the processes are completed and there is no transaction data available. First, it will make sure that the transaction has been completed, and it also closes all the application that used in this transaction, or in other words, it will release all the resources that it has been used in order to carry out the work, right? So the better, I think, in this situation, this is very similar to the process state that you have learned in operating system. So whenever the process is created, first it will be get initialized, then it will take the resources, or it will occupy the resources which is required to carry out the process. Then it will carry out the process. Then before ending its state, first it will release the resources which has been occupied by it to carry out the process. Then it will go to the end state. Clear? So that's what exactly when here it is happening. Clear? So this is the layout. This is the layout that you will get when you use transaction business process. So first it will go to the start state, then init state first, where the whole responsibility is to initialize the robot. Then get transaction data. It will see whether it can take data from the init state, or whether there is a data in the transaction data in the init state. Then it will process it. Then it will hand over to the process transaction. Then if there is no data it can get from the init state, then it will go to the end process. Or similarly, even here it will see here, it will get the transaction data, and if there is no data, then it will go to the end process. And sorry, this is not no data case. This is when the system error has occurred in this state. okay, in this state, then it will go to the end process. Obviously, right, if there is no data, then it has to end the process. Otherwise, if there is an error indication, then in that case also it has to end the process. Clear? If there is a new transaction, then it has to process the transaction, and if it is success, then the job has been completed, then it has to go to the end process. So right, if there is an error, okay, either it has to go to the init state, so that it has to check, or it has to go to the transaction data state. So it depends on the type of the error that it has been arised or it has been generated here. Clear? So that's what, see here, a transaction either succeeds or fails with a business rule, exception, or system error. Okay, if there is an exception or there may be an error, so depending on the type of the exception it has generated, or depending on the type of the error it has been thrown, it will go to the proper state. Clear? So now we shall go to the second best practice. So breaking the process into smaller parts. This is, you already have familiar this with this even in C or even in Java. So best simple example is, don't write the complete logic in a single main function. If I take a C program example, don't write the complete logic to which will solve the problem in a single main function. So instead you split the task into functions. Like for example, let us assume that you're supposed to write a C program to build a simple calculator which will perform addition, subtraction, multiplication, division of two given numbers. The entire logic can be written in the main function, right, to solve that problem. So best practice is, so split the task into different, simpler parts, like void add, whose job is to add only two given numbers, and void subtract, whose job is to subtract two given numbers, void multiplication, and then call these functions in the main function. That's what the author is telling. Even here, to build any project, we have to use various activities, that is true, but using too many activities makes the project clumsy. See here, activities means, I have already taught you, it is similar to statements in C, right? It is similar to statements in C. So but using too many statements makes a project clumsy. That's what I think you can clear this point with the example just now I quoted here. Okay, we have to design our project in such a way that each independent parts reside separately. See, add is in the independent part which can be in a separate function, subtract is an independent part which can be reside in a separate function, like that. So we can achieve this by using workflows. Here in RPA, we should put each independent part of the project inside a single workflow. See, for example, in C I said in a separate function, right? But in RPA, you treat this as a separate workflow. So assign responsibility of adding two given numbers in a separate workflow, assign responsibility of subtracting two numbers in a separate workflow, assign responsibility of dividing two numbers or multiplying two numbers in a separate workflow, and call these workflows inside this main workflow, right? Like that. Clear? So we can invoke all the workflows inside the project at the appropriate position. That's what I said just now. So dividing the project into workflows makes the project cleaner and more maintainable. Cleaner means readable, and more, since it is readable, it can be, and since what I can say, a specific task has been separated in a separate workflow, it is also easily maintainable too, right? Clear? So now if any developer wants to debug your code, they can check the different workflows and easily pinpoint in which workflow. That's what I said. If you have remembered the previous example, like I quoted here. Here, if there is a mistake in input, or if you're facing error in the data input, then you can check only this particular sequence. You don't need to touch upon this. Similarly here, if you have, since you have segregated separate workflow for adding two numbers, separate workflow for subtracting two numbers, multiplying, if you are getting incorrect result in adding two numbers, then you can focus on this workflow. Okay, like that. That's what the author is telling here. So pinpointing a workflow is also easy, and since moreover, since pinpointing makes easy, then it also takes less time to solve that error. Clear? So if the project is not divided into workflows, it will be a nightmare. I mean, nightmare in the sense means then they have to work for a long time in order to fix any error, right? So thus breaking an automation into smaller parts enables easy debugging or testing, as well as the workflows across the projects. So see here, interesting. See, this is a separate sequence whose responsibility to get the input, and this is a flow chart or a transaction business process whose responsibility is to processing the business logic, and this is a sequence whose job is to finalize the processing. Like this, you need to split the project into separate independent workflows. That's what the author is telling. And then another best practice is use exception handling. So we already have learned about exception handling. Okay, whenever you are creating any automation project, it is better to use exception handling mechanism. So that's what even the author is telling here. While working on a project, it is better to use exception handling because it reduces the risk of errors, or in other words, it avoids abruptly halting the stopping the given task, right? So how to do this? We already have learned by using try catch block, right? Try catch block. There are various exception handling techniques that have been explained earlier, or we already have discussed, and depending on the situation, you have to use the proper exception handling technique. That's what the author is telling here. See here. So if you find that this particular activity may throw an exception, then put that in a try block and add respective catch blocks and finally block. That's what the author is telling here. I will don't waste time again here. We already have learned about this. And making your workflow readable, another best practice. So it is good practice to name activities on the basis of the operations they perform, to ensure that when we return to the workflow, we can easily identify each and every step used in it. See, it is very simple. As I said, even in C, you have learned this. Name the variable properly, so that by looking at that variable name, you should understand why you have created that variable. And the same rule will be applicable even for a function too. So just now I said that let us assume that we have a function called add. See, if the function name is add and int a comma int b, then by looking at this name of the function, easily we can understand that so the job of this particular add function is to add two integer numbers. So the same practice has to be used by RPA developer here to name the workflow or the sequence or the variable, it seems. So this becomes very helpful while finding and resolving errors. Obviously it is true, right? And if activities are properly named, we get to know exactly which part of the workflow is not working when you are facing system errors or errors generally. Clear? The bottom line is very simple. If you have used this practice to name variables or workflows or sequence, it makes your testing or debugging task very easier. Clear? Okay, for example, we'll create a workflow that will ask the user to guess a number, on the basis of which will perform an addition and finally display the answer. So let us consider this as a given problem. Okay, see here, user input, we will taking user input here. Okay, then addition we are doing here, then outputting the message here. The following screenshot shows the proper naming of the steps involved in the process. So see here, they have labeled this particular activity with user input. So by looking at this, we can easily say that this activity responsibility is to get the user input. And see here, they have properly named even this assignment called addition. See, by looking at this name, we can easily understand that addition operation has been performed here. And again, look at this name here, output message. By looking at this name, we can easily say that this particular activity is writing or displaying the message like this. And keeping it clean, another best practice. So just as writing in a clean and understandable manner is the quality of good coder, the same holds true for an RPA developer, it seems. I mean, clean in the sense means what I can say, if you follow the previous practices just now we discussed, then obviously your code will be kept clean, right? Clean code helps us to understand the whole process very easily. Okay, you and whoever is reading it. One simple example for keeping it clean is, let us assume that you have written a main function and 3 statements here, and let us assume many statements here, and you have commented these statements. Again statements here, again little bit comment statements here, again statements here. Let us assume that these comment statements, you don't need these statements which you have commented is not needed. So no problem, since you have commented this, you will get the result. But since it is not needed, so it is better to delete or to delete this particular commenting section. That's what the author is telling here, keeping it clean means. And obviously the previous practices you also has to follow in order to keep the code clean. So now the last objective that we plan to cover in this particular session is nesting workflows. As the name itself says, nesting workflows means keeping one workflow inside another workflow, like nested if-else statement like that. So while working in UiPath, it is better to divide the whole process into smaller parts. We already have learned this. Then nest these workflows into larger one. Okay. This can be done using in-work workflow file. We already have practically demonstrated this in the beginning classes itself. Right? There are several steps involved in nesting workflow. Okay, or many workflows into a single workflow. It depends on the requirement, whether you have to nest two workflows inside another workflow, or only one workflow in another workflow. It depends on the requirement. Clear? We already have demonstrated this. I hope you have remembered this. If you have not remembered this, just go back and watch the previous videos where I have explained how to create a workflow and how to invoke workflow in another workflow like that. Clear? So there are steps here. So just you need to follow these steps. Arguments we already have discussed, arguments too, right? So with this I will end the session. So in the next class we shall go ahead with another interesting topic called reusability of workflows. Clear? So if you have any doubt regarding this, so you please ask me so that I can give a better example, or I can clarify your doubt. So with this I will end the session. Thank you, one and all.